Hello, my name is Francis, and today we'll be taking a look down memory lane in my very humble beginnings of tennis and see what my future plans are in my so-called tennis career. So enjoy.
2017, the beginning. 2018, still the beginning. 2018 started, fairly unplayable, just like this court. Let's start with my serve. It was not that strong, it was pretty unreliable, and just outright looked very, very strange. I mean, look at this here. Or this. Although my serves weren't as promising, my ground strokes were looking better. Fast forwarding to the summer of 2018, I'm practicing some ground strokes. Ooh, big forehand. Well, at least for that time. But by this point, I was actually displaying some level of consistency. Although my shots were not necessarily powerful, I could still get the ball back quite frequently and win lots of points that way at this beginner level. That's right, folks, you heard it correctly. I used to be that player that I dread nowadays, which is the pusher. A player that can hit as consistently and slowly as that ball machine right there. And by this point, I was naively okay with that. Most of the playing didn't really involve any serving, and so it didn't really matter if I served that strangely or not. Instead, all I really cared about was having a more consistent ground stroke game with at least some competent level of volleying in these drill play or cardio classes, where serving wasn't really emphasized as much. And so for many years, not just 2018, I neglected the serve quite a bit. Instead, I just wanted to look as cool as Federer at that time. I mean, look at that Nike headband right there, as I get lobbed. Neglecting the serve was both a blessing and a curse. It was a blessing in the sense that it allowed me to focus on all other aspects of my games, whether it be the forehand, backhand, volleys, footwork sometimes. That's questionable. However, neglecting the serve was a curse in the way that I was neglecting the most important shot in tennis, arguably. The serve is the shot that starts off the point to begin with and gives a massive advantage to whomever is on serve. In hindsight, this was a mindset that set me back many years actually and lost me many singles and doubles matches. And by not focusing on improving my serve for so long, it still affects my gameplay to this day quite a lot. It's by far one of my weakest aspects, along with my backhand. But regardless, the rest is history, and I focused on just about every other aspect of the game. Kobe! Still got it. 2019, Weird Grips. Now that I had some level of competency for my ground strokes and my volleys, emphasis on the somewhat part, I was at a stage where I didn't just want to focus on consistency, but also more power and topspin. And this led to some very strange results. In order to maintain more power, I needed more spin. And to get more spin, it led me to adopt a very extreme forehand grip. In here, you can see it looks almost like a full Western grip, but it might even be more extreme than that. It might even be what's known as a Hawaiian grip. A grip that I would not recommend to most recreational players in general. As you can see, it's pretty demanding on those wrists and the arm. Prior to me adopting these grips, I believe I had an Eastern or even continental grip, the other extreme of the spectrum. I didn't even know that I adopted these grips until much later as I recorded myself. And even more strange was that I didn't even have to switch grips when doing my one-handed backhand at the time. It was the same Western or Hawaiian grip I was using for my forehand. These two grips also led me to the pretty bad habit of me leaning back into my shots as opposed to going forward, as you can see from that forehand and also that backhand as well. And I'm not saying that it's the grip's fault, but because of the arc that I was trying to put on the ball with the spin, it led me to lean back more to maintain that arc, which is, well, not correct, technically speaking. To fix my grip woes, I made a pilgrimage out to the USTA National Campus in Orlando, Florida. And this time, I was trying to switch my grip to an Eastern grip. And if you remember, that's because I wanted to look cool like Federer, who also used the same grip. And having a more Eastern grip at least led me to have more drive-through in my forehands, which helped a lot with the pace aspect, but not necessarily the spin one. But I was okay with that, and was happy to make the change and see some improvements as we were moving into the new year, and things were finally looking bright in terms of my technique. "2020, the unthinkable happened. By this point in the year, everything was normal, and I still had a very strange forehand, but was still working on it, and there was some, well, minimal progress. That was pretty weird there, but progress nonetheless. All was relatively smooth sailing, and I just wanted to improve that forehand. But little did I know that would come to a screeching halt. And I think you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. COVID-19 spread like wildfire internationally and put us all in lockdown. No tennis for you, Jerry. And no tennis for me either. For the world of tennis, we entered a new era of practicing in our own homes and destroying furniture. And that's why I switched to this foam ball to practice my volleys instead, to break smaller furniture. I was craving tennis so much that I even made it in pasta form. And when I was able to go outside, all I could do was hit a ball on a string. Not the best hitting partner, but it was better than nothing at the time. I even met other tennis fans. Dogs are the best tennis fans in the world, am I right? When are those courts gonna open back up? Well, let's skip ahead a little bit to the point where they do open back up. 2023, the age of recording. Although the dogs make good ball kids, I was able to play more smoothly now. But by this point, courts were open and I was playing a good amount with friends and competitors. And by this point, I decided to switch to a two-handed backhand from my long-time one-handed backhand. And there were two main reasons why I made such a drastic change. The first one being a lot of arm discomfort and wanted to maintain my, well, longevity in terms of my arm health. And sorry to disappoint you, but that guy was not me. And number two, my backhand before, the one-handed backhand, was often getting picked on by better players who could kind of just use a, battering ram strategy to my backhand until I just make an error, which more frequently than not happened. So that led me to the uneasy question of, do I switch to a two-handed backhand, and is it worth it? Well, regardless, I decided to take the risk and invest a lot of time at the ball machine and also some private lessons to develop a two-handed backhand. It became my 2023 New Year's resolution to begin the arduous transition of changing to a two-handed backhand from a one-hander. Mentally speaking, by this point, I was all in. Another big motivator for me to make the switch, not just for my backhand, but for my serves as well, was that app called Swing Vision, as you can see in the bottom left corner. When I used this app, it was a big wake-up call to me that, wow, my shots look really ugly. Time to do some spring cleaning in terms of my form. So in regard to my serve and not my backhand, I decided to try out a pinpoint stance for once and see if I can get more momentum in my serve and get more pace. And although I don't use a pinpoint stance anymore where I use my back leg to step up and move forward, I now use a platform stance. It opened the door to experiment with the technique and see what worked and what didn't work for me. Thanks to me recording, I could now visually see as well how it was working, whether it was putting good results or not. It's amazing how many things you don't realize you're doing wrong until you actually see yourself on video. And this is what led me to start recording more and more almost every time I play, whenever I have a chance to get that quick feedback of what's working and what's not. Speaking of feedback, I worked with a great coach who was able to, develop this two-handed backhand, which was really alien to me, and really fix up my form. And not just for my backhand, but also for my serve as well. As you can see, gone were the days of the T-Rex serve, and I was finally having some correct technique, at least. As the year went on, I started to gain more confidence in my play thanks to those lessons and thanks to the ball machine, and started playing with, the dreaded pusher. And in this case, that's my good friend Jin here in our rivalry series. Go check that out, by the way. Which essentially leads us to the present now, and I started a YouTube channel where I can document my tennis playing and see where I can improve.
So that leaves us with the question, what's left for 2024 then? Well, for my technique, I'm thinking of improving two different things. Number one would be my serve, just trying to improve the consistency of my serve and adding more topspin, so that way I can just increase that margin and have that ball dip into the court more often. And then number two is to improve my backhand, where I need to improve the reliability of that as well. And that is also another topspin issue. Need to add more topspin so that it can, again, dip into the court and increase that consistency. Will I use a ball machine or a coach to achieve those goals? Well, maybe a coach. I think it is very expensive in New York City, but again, it can be so valuable to have that additional insight and see what you're doing wrong. And there's only so much I can do with just watching myself and evaluating myself. I can be a bit biased when it comes to my own technique. Aside from technique, I have some other goals as well, hoping to get some better experience versus that pusher style type of player, but also hopefully I can join a USTA team, whether it be a 3-5 or 4-0 team, and get some of that league match practice and get more comfortable in that type of setting. But there you have it. That's as far as I know for 2024, so far at least, and hope you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more, feel free and hit that subscribe button. I'm saying that unapologetically. Until next time, Hall of Framers.